She takes a seat back in her chair. There's still that famous brilliant smile at age 90. There are lines around her eyes from the years, but they haven't made her softer. Instead, they've made her eyes more intense. Her laugh is low, throaty, and full of mischief. It lets you know that she's about to say something funny and true at the same time. As she slowly drinks her drink, her eyes light up as if she knows she's about to do something bad. "Darling," she starts, putting her lips together in a smile. "I no longer have to pretend to be someone I'm not. I've been America's sweetheart for decades." The hair, the smile, and the kisses on fire escapes and roofs that looked like they were from a fairy tale. But do you know what they don't tell you about beloved ones? We dream about the ugliest things sometimes. Her voice drops as she leans forward, as if she's about to admit a sin. "When I was in those movies with those beautiful co-stars and lead men whose hands knew exactly what to do when the director yelled, 'Action!' I wasn't always thinking about my lines. There were times when I wondered what it would be like if the cameras kept rolling after the scene was over." Julie laughs in a deep voice and brushes her silver-streaked hair back with one hand. "Also, don't look shocked. The hottest guys in Hollywood were all around me. Rebels who look like they're on fire. There were golden boys who smelled like sin and cologne. Easygoing people who knew how to use words to seduce. Do you think a girl won't see? Please, everything caught my eye. And let's just say that some of those sets might have needed new sheets instead of new lines if I had let myself." She has no shame in her big smile. Who did they seem to be? 6 men. There were 6 players who could have made me break every promise I ever made to be a good girl. And sweetheart, I remember how badly I wanted them even now. 1. Richard Gere. She almost rolls her eyes at herself as she smirks, as if she knows everyone has been waiting decades for her to say it. Let's begin with the obvious, shall we? Richard Gere. Oh my God. All of you saw Pretty Woman. Runaway Bride was your movie. Do I really need to say this? That guy could tie a tie look like a sexual act. I can tell you for sure that it wasn't acting because I was the one he was looking at. That's a thread that I used to hold it together. She doesn't feel bad about her mean laugh anymore. We had real chemistry, the kind of chemistry that directors pray for. They asked for action. A lot of the time, all I had to do was breathe. Because when he looked at me with those eyes and that sly grin, I wasn't Julia Roberts, the American movie star. As a woman, I tried not to use him as a ladder in front of the crew. She leans back because she remembers how her voice got low and scary. That scene is on Pretty Woman, the one where I'm lying on the floor with my necklace around my neck and he snaps the box shut with his teeth. At that point, everyone laughs. What most people don't know, though, is that Richard liked to pull that kind of surprise. Things that weren't planned. Things that drove up the heat in the chemistry. I can tell you that when a man like him surprises you, your body talks before your brain does. Having chills, a beating heart, and feeling hot in places the cameras couldn't see. Performing, please. A lot of the time I was just getting by. Julia lets out a slow sigh as if she wants to enjoy the moment all over again. Now, everyone always wants to know if we ever did anything together. And we were polite about the truth number. On paper, I was a good girl. But some nights I came back to my hotel room after shooting by myself and imagined that Richard would be knocking on the door any second. I wouldn't even try with words. He could wear the shoes and tie anyway. The whole suit even. I only want him to mess it up on the way down. The way her eyes are narrowed shows that she knows she's saying too much but doesn't care. Richard made me feel like I was the only woman in the world. Every nerve in my body lit up when he'd lean in and whisper a line. It wasn't just me. Everyone in the set felt it. When we were on set together, the crew would be quiet. Not because they were told to, but because the air was charged and the spell would break if you even breathed too loudly. She smiles longingly and shakes her head. Not in the way you think. It wasn't because he was bad. No, because he was kind, calm, good, and careful. That's what broke me. A bad boy you should watch out for. But a man who makes you feel safe while also making you hot is dangerous. It was also very dangerous to work with Richard Gere every single day. When Julia smiles like this, it looks like she's telling the crowd a secret she's been hiding for decades. That's why we never crossed that line. But let me make things clear. If Richard had leaned in even just once, I wouldn't have stopped him if he kissed me like he did on TV. Not for all the Oscars in the world. That's what I would have let him finish while the cameras were rolling. And trust me, it would have been a great repeat. Then she laughs, her voice high and without shame. Richard Gere was the one who got away. Or maybe I was the one who ran. When I almost broke every rule I ever set for myself, I will never forget it. I wouldn't have asked if I had, let's just say. You already know. 2. George Clooney. Julia laughs and almost shakes her head as she thinks of it. George Clooney. That man was a risk when he was dressed up. We worked together on the Ocean's movies, and I can tell you that being nice to George was the hardest acting I've ever done. He always walked on set with a silky smooth gait, as if he knew he was the most handsome man there. And the truth is that he was, she says with a smile as her voice drops. George had a smile that could make you look bad in an instant. It was fun to film these short back and forths with quick eye contact and conversation. But I would think, if he leans just an inch closer, we're not going to get through this scene without breaking some rules. He had that kind of pull. Plain and simple, but very dangerous. Julia leans back as if she can picture it. Something about George was that he made everything seem like a secret. He would smile or say something smart. All of a sudden, even though there was a whole crew around, it felt like just the two of us were in our own little world. That's how he got you. He made you feel like you were picked. And honey, it was exciting when George Clooney picked you, even for a second. She laughs in a mean and knowing way. The worst part was that he knew it. George knew that what he did had an effect. During breaks, he'd tilt his head and smile. Suddenly, everyone on set, men and women alike, would lean toward him like plants leaning toward sunshine. What about me? I had to act like I wasn't sick. Please. To be honest, I was dying inside. Her voice dips, sneaky and shameless. That line was never crossed, but there were times when I really wanted to. George might have told me to sneak off with him in my ear between takes. We shot in casinos, but that wasn't the only place that would have been hot. 3. Washington, D.C. There is a little less of a smile in Julia's eyes now, but they still shine with fun. Washington, D.C. Oh, that man. It was impossible to leave the Pelican Brief when I was working with him. It was like being too close to a fire. He had this weight and presence that drew you in whether you meant to or not. It sped up your heart to be next to him. She shakes her head as if she's still not sure what to think about it. Denzel was good enough that he didn't have to try. He didn't flirt out loud. He didn't try to get attention. He was. It seemed like the whole world stopped when he looked at you. As I went through my lines and tried to stay in character, he would look at me and the script would stop making sense. How he made you feel like you were the only woman in the world was important. Her speech falls low and is both playful and serious. At times on that set, I thought, if this man leans in just once, I am finished. I will forget my name, my lines, my entire career. He had that effect. And the truth, I wanted him to. Every woman in Hollywood did, whether they admitted it or not. Denzel carried himself like a king. And honey, I was ready to be royalty for a night. She laughs. Wicked, but warm. Of course, we were both professionals. We kept it clean, kept it friendly. But you can't fake that kind of heat. Even the fans noticed it. People still tell me, why didn't you two kiss in that movie? And I just smile because if we had, well, the screen might have melted. And off-screen, I can only imagine her eyes narrow, teasing. Denzel was temptation wrapped in grace, strong, magnetic, impossible to resist. I behaved, yes, but if he'd whispered my name in that voice of his in the dark after a long day of filming, Lord, I don't think I'd have had the strength to walk away. 4. Hugh Grant. Julia lets out a little laugh, that signature wide grin flashing. Hugh Grant. Now there's a man who could have talked me into just about anything. We made Notting Hill together, and I swear half the world still thinks we actually fell in love. And maybe that's because for a moment or two I wondered if we had. She tilts her head almost coy. You had that charm, the kind you couldn't bottle if you tried. He'd stumble over his words, run that hand through his hair and make it look like he was nervous. But don't be fooled. That man knew exactly what he was doing. It was an act, but Lord, it worked. He could look at you with those puppy dog eyes and make you forget every good decision you'd ever made. Her voice dips lower, teasing. Filming those scenes with him was dangerous. We'd be standing close, trading lines, and suddenly I'd think, if he kisses me right now, I'm not stopping it. Leave the plot behind. Leave the cameras alone. He had that kind of charm. He was soft-spoken, sneaky, and a little wicked underneath all that sweetness. Julia pauses and smiles wickedly. In between takes, he'd crack jokes, sometimes at his own expense and sometimes at mine. He'd do it with that accent and half-smile, and all of a sudden, the whole crew would be laughing. But I'd be standing there thinking, oh, honey, if you aimed that mischief in the wrong direction, I'd be lost. He was more than funny. He was smart. He could make you feel like you were the only person in the room, even if there were a lot of other people there. With a sad face, she shakes her head. There is a reason why people were so excited about that movie. Because he wasn't pretending when he looked at me. Not really. Hugh was just being himself, and I was trying not to show that I was keen. A little bit of her voice changes. It was all business, of course. All the time. But let me say this. Please forgive me if Hugh Grant had come into my trailer one night with that grin and tousled hair and asked me to run away with him. I might have said yes, if only for one night, to see if the dream matched the man. Her voice drops to a fun whisper as she leans in. Just between us? I still believe it would have happened. 5. Salman Khan. Julie leans back and her eyes look sly, like she's about to say something she shouldn't. El Cafe. Lord, that man was bad luck dressed up. Even though we never made a movie together, I made it up more often than I care to admit. He seemed serious, like he wasn't just playing. He was alive all the time. People who are that hot can't help but make you wonder what it would be like if they let it out on you. She laughs to herself and shakes her head. The look in Al's eyes was crazy and sharp, like he could see right through you. It was scary when I saw him as Scarface in The Godfather. Even in his smaller parts, I thought, if he ever looked at me like that, I'd be done. That kind of man has power. Someone who makes you give up before he even speaks. Even though it's all in her head, her voice gets husky as she talks about memories. I saw him a few times at events, like those Hollywood parties where everyone is acting like they're not serious. Al, though, didn't need to act. When he leaned in to shake your hand and say your name in that gruff voice, you turned red like a schoolgirl. I also don't blush easily. Julia lets out a mean laugh. He was both dangerous and attractive, and it seemed like he could ruin your life and make you appreciate it. The worst part was that he knew it. The way he walked told you everything. He looked at each woman in the room as if she were about to fall, and he already knew which one he would catch. She leans forward and seems to be in on a plot. I often thought about what it would be like, at least not on TV or in front of a camera. They should stay behind closed doors. I'm sure Al wasn't nice. Not in the way of a movie star. I bet he was honest and raw, the kind of lover who made you lose faith in other people. There was a part of me that really wanted to know. She smiles less, but her voice stays firm. That's not how we ever met. I was good. However, I'll say it now, Al Pacino was my dream that I could never shake. His storm made me want to walk right into it to see if I'd make it out alive. 6. Tom Hanks. Julie laughs in a way that sounds both guilty and evil. You can call him America's dad, America's sweetheart, or anything else you want. From the outside, he seems like the nicest guy in Hollywood. On the other hand, I must say that working on Charlie Wilson's War made me think some very bad things. She leans in and her eyes light up. Tom was like this mix of quick wit and quiet confidence. He was just being himself. That was what was wrong. He was. When he walked onto the set, he was all easy charm and would crack a joke or two. Suddenly, everyone in the room felt calm. When it comes to me, I'd be thinking, Lord, if this man ever turned that charm on me for real, I wouldn't stand a chance. Julia laughs, almost embarrassed by herself. During many of our scenes together, the dialogue was short, funny, and tinged with something you can't quite pin down. I would feel my legs weak every once in a while when Tom would give me this look. It was just a flicker, a spark in his eye. That's the thing about him. He didn't need to try. You wanted to get closer to him just to keep the feeling going that you knew the best secret in the world. Her voice gets softer and naughtier. Do not misunderstand me. Tom is a gentleman, married and a true gentleman. But women can't be stopped by even the most handsome guys. And mine. I remember going home from work some nights still buzzing from how he leaned in during a scene, how warm his laugh was, and how he filled a room with his presence without even raising his voice. That kind of energy stays with you whether you want it to or not. She smiles. Wicked and smart. Tom Hanks was the thing you should have avoided thinking about. It's too good and pure. But maybe that was what made him scary. When a man is that good, you want to know what happens when the lights go out and he stops being everyone's hero.